All the ingredients for a thrilling game of poker were laid out here in Vienna for the 6th staging of the big game. The biggest names in the business, a stunning location, plenty of cash and a good dose of tension, all made for an electrifying opening to this 48-hour non-stop cash game. Welcome to the Montesino in Vienna and the Party Poker Big Game. 48 hours of non-stop action. Some will ask the pace, some will go broke, some will quit while they are ahead, and some will be banished from the table via the player evictions. All the ingredients are certainly here for a thrilling 48 hours of action. And if anyone thought that we would be off to a slow start, they hadn't factored in the likes of Phil Laak and Sam Trickett, who have been very busy since the beginning.
Phil Laak has a fearsome reputation when it comes to the big game, and with the 6th edition, he carried on just where he left off, making the most of his position.
I have position on some of the players that I know like to be a little more active, and they had 20K stacks. And then there's some guys behind me that like to raise to isolate, and I don't like to have the big stack with those type of guys behind me either.
Laak's lucrative laid-back style paid off early on and set Laak on the path to greater riches. Iliodoros Kamatakis, the first to clash with the American. Laak's trip 8's too much for an ace high. Kamatakis forced to rebuy to stay in contention and forced to mix it up once more when a clash with Trickett back in. The river couldn't save Trickett, and that summed up the Englishman's first couple of hours in the big game. WSOP bracelet winner Elky was slow to join the action, but opportunities came, and with them, the money. The Jungleman arrived in Vienna with a fearsome reputation, but once again, it was that man Laak who did the damage. Ignat Liviu, looking for action, felt a straight would be enough against Alec Torelli, who up to this point had been pretty quiet. The ups and downs of the first couple of hours worked wonders for Phil Laak, who once again finds himself on top of a big game leaderboard. Alec Torelli, via his clash with Ignat Liviu's in hot pursuit. At the other end, life is looking pretty grim for Sam Trickett, nearly 25K down, with Ignat vying for that bottom spot with losses totaling just over 23K. 48 hours of action, 8 players setting out on an epic voyage of discovery. All 8 still aboard, but a way to go. I am joined by Mike Sexton.
But if he was alive, I actually, after I read, when I discovered he was...
You know, where a guy like Ilios, Mike, is going to do well is if these blinds, these straddles kind of get to the point where every time it comes around to him, the money's already in the pot. So he can play tight and not have to worry about getting action on his hands.
Phil Laak picking up 2 kings here. He makes the raise at 3 1/4.
And they all had passed away by the time I figured I had chance. And when I
Torelli again.
he was still alive.
Torelli has a hand that another hand that he easily could have re-raised with, Mike. I think this is just sort of Torelli's overall cash game strategy right now to just
a solid, tight player, as we say. Now, this flop could get him in a little trouble here. It comes 10-4-3. He's going to check, but I believe he's going to call when Phil Laak bets here. But he goes check, check. That wows me. Now, Torelli's got to believe he's got the best hand with 2 9s. For sure, he's putting him on something like ace-jack, maybe ace-8. But now look what's happened. Torelli bets out in the turn, and he gets raised. Now, as a poker player, If a guy checks the flop and then raises you on the turn, you automatically think he's just trying to reel you in, was trying to trap you all along. Let's see if Torelli can figure that out.
Yep. Would it be a draw here? Would he have hit the heart on the turn?
Well, that's what Torelli's thinking. He could have a flush draw and just be trying to raise me out of this pot. I think it's a difficult laydown to make just because of this potential draw that's out there. And he does make the call with the 2 9s, and as the cards lie, he must catch a 9 to win this pot.
Not only that, he knows if he catches a 9, it'll also complete a flush. So it's a bold call to make, Mike. And he's going to have to be willing to take some heat on the river here.
Well, a heart comes on the river. Not the card either one of them wanted to see, to be honest with you.
No. But Laak has got to have a little bit of heart here, doesn't he? He's going to have to.
Well, he is betting the 2 kings now pretty strong.
He's bet it quite small, actually. Is that 1250?
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting the color of these chips here. I keep thinking Vegas chips, but not the same. Have to go over the domination of these chips again, but he's bet $1,250, 1,250 euros, which is more than dollars.
I mean, if you're Torelli right here, you got a lot of information to process. If, you know, that small bet on the river, it looks like one that wants to get paid off, doesn't it? And
it's a beg me call. And Torelli looks like he's going to accommodate him.
Because
he's just curious to see what he had. He checked on the flop. He got raised on the turn. Was it a flush raise draw? Was it an 8-9? What was it? Why did the guy raise me? But he's going to lay it down. Wow,
he said,
Torelli.
I just got to be beat. I think Phil Laak, Mike, he tries everything to subterfuge, obfuscate, whatever you call it, confuse people. Maybe I'm confusing myself. But Torelli saw through it, didn't he? I think Trickett knows it wasn't a bluff and is trying to wind up Torelli a little bit here, Mike. Phil Laak's feeling good right now.
For people at home, too, with all the little Switzerlands in between that are ready to hurt us, you know?
Well, folded all the way around to the button over to Katchalov. He's got ace high on the button. He's going to raise it up a little.
250.
Makes it 250 to go. Oh, and look at this in the small blind. Elky just calls with the aggressive Sam Trickett behind him, hoping Sam would make a play at that pot. Didn't happen though.
Or Ilios is in the straddle. This might be Elky's best way, Mike, of, well, is it going to be Elky's best way of getting action? It sure is.
The dream come true for Elky.
Do you realize how big a raise Ilios just made?
Unbelievable.
250 up to 5,600.
250 to 5,600, and he's ran into the 2 aces. Unbelievable. Elky just limped in, did not re-raise with 2 aces, had 2 aggressive players sitting behind him, thought he might rope one of them, and indeed he did. Now let's see if he can brand him. It's not over, but Elky, the big favorite, to bust him again.
First thing Sam Trickett said was, you did that for me, didn't you, Elky? You were trying to trap me. He's no fool.
That's the truth. Well, flop comes Jack 4-3, meaning Elias is going to have to catch 2 running cards to win the pot. He's already ordered chips. He knows what a big underdog he is to win this pot. Has to catch 2 runners to make a straight or a running combination of king-queen. Doesn't happen as the 6 of hearts comes off. Elky wins a nice pot that he would have probably never won had he 3-bet it right up front with the 2 aces.
Mike, that was kind of an insane play by Ilios, if you think about it. The raise was only to 250 call. There was less than 1,000 in the pot, and Ilios shoved all in for 5,600. I think that's a pretty negative play overall, isn't it?
Well, let me explain to you. It could only happen the way it did, where the guy slow played 2 aces or kings in the blind like Elky did there. He just put the button guy on making a raise. Elky did not re-raise, so he didn't put him on that big a hand, so he just thought he'd move in and pick it all up, but obviously he was punished for it.
Yeah, when you're putting 5,600 in to win just under 1,000 in cash, Geez, that play has to work something like 90% of the time, Mike. 88% of the time, something like 6 out of 7
I'd
times,
guess
right?
95 out of 100 people.
Has to be successful very often, let's just say.
All I know is most people, and when I say most,
6 out of 7
I'd
times.
guess 95 out of 100 people would have 3-bet with 2 aces right there in Elky's spot.
Yeah. This is going to be a bigger mountain to climb all the time, and this is obviously one of the problems with buying in for the minimum. You know, now he's going to have to triple himself up just to get even.
Yeah.
I'd like to wager on what Ilios's next buy-in is if he loses this 5,000.
Well,
5, 5, 5, 20.
You know, Jesse, I'm certain he's playing here just because he can play on television. He enjoys poker, can probably well afford to play in the game, but to have an opportunity to play against these top players.
You know, that other thing about Ilios playing the short stack, obviously when you play against very good players, the shorter your stack, the easier the decisions you have to make.
For sure.
And that's when you're playing with people who you think might have an edge over you. It's no shame to be doing it like that.
Well, it's much easier when you're playing poker, when you just have one decision to make as opposed to 4. So certainly you either go all in or you get out, and that's an easy decision to make. You don't have to think anymore. Nobody can outplay you. And when you're on a short stack, that's what you can do. And Elias is in that position to be on a short stack right now, but I'm sure he'd rather be in a position where he gets some chips and have a few decisions to make along the way.
Jungleman v. Trickett. Straddle position versus the button of Sam. He checked the top pair. This is reminiscent of a pot they played earlier when Jungleman made a straight on the river, but Trickett just checking the top pair back on the flop and then making his value bets on the turn.
Jungleman going to call him with bottom pair. Now a queen comes off. Jungleman will able to pay him off again.
Well, if he paid him off the first time, he pretty much has to, doesn't he?
Well, Trickett doesn't have a very big kicker with the jack, but I think he's going to bet the queens and jacks here.
Check.
Nope, he checks it down. He's going to win the pot.
Yeah, I win.
Trickett not happy he didn't make the value bet there on the end. Didn't want to get raised out of that pot just in case the Jungleman had a queen in his hand.
That was a bad tip.
Sam Trickett, a familiar face to poker fans around the world and a familiar sight on the big game.
That's like my 3rd year playing. I won the first year small. I like broke even. I won like 25k the first year and probably lost 25k last year. So hopefully try and get into some profit this year.
Jungleman looks like he's about to fall asleep. It's a pretty good advertisement for that masseuse.
31,000. 35.
I think she's going to keep pretty busy over the next 48 hours.
Suspend again, because we're in the next hand.
Yeah. If she wants to work, she's going to have a long job this session.
He's
Still thinking about the style of Alec Torelli here. I can't figure it out if it's a bathrobe, a shirt, a
Yeah,
scarf.
that's what I mean. Sorry. So
I don't know what it is.
That's all I wanted to know. Sorry.
All I know is
It was just
looks like he belongs in Beverly Hills or
Yeah,
Monaco or
Wilbur J.
something.
Fudd. He owns a mansion and a yacht. Folded around to Trickett, who's made it 300 open. And see, this is the balancing act of Phil Laak, isn't it, Mike? You don't want to, in a sense, turn your hand into a bluff by re-raising with those 3-10s, getting re-raised, that sort of thing.
Well, we saw him 3-bet a minute ago. Here he just calls with 2 10s. So definitely, and flops 3 10s. Incredible.
I really like the way he's playing right now.
Well, Trickett's got a 2-way straight draw. 8 or a queen would give him a straight.
Obviously, it gets really easier to play well when you're hitting big hands all the
Well,
time.
even if you've got 3 10s, if an 8 or a queen comes up, you're not going to lose any money in this pot because you're going to put your opponent on a straight. So that's Trickett's problem right here. If he makes a straight, he can't make money with it.
Well, Trickett has to make a decision here about how many. He's found a check. If he wants to double or triple barrel it, he's made a good give up.
Well, now the 3 of hearts comes off. Well, Laak on a bet, hoping he's got some kind of pair here. And he's going to win the pot right there. So Phil Laak on a little heater here. No doubt about it. Raising with junk, calling with good hands, going back and forth, changing gears, as we say. He is dabbing it right now.
He really is.
Did I find the poker game?
Phil Laak mixing up his game, which has taken him clear of the field. A massively experienced player who has been a regular on previous big games.
I feel like it wouldn't be complete without Viffer or Jennifer because they've done it both years, and Jennifer knocked it out of the park. She was the top 3 winner, or top 2 winner the first year and top 3 winners or something the next year. She just killed it. So she couldn't make it. She's doing a Broadway play. But I flew over because I love this. I love it. I missed it last year, and I've tried not to miss it twice in a row, so now here I am.
Phil's really been the table captain so far, hasn't he? He's negotiating terms with Torelli. He's commenting on Jungleman. He's ordering hamburgers. He's ahead 20,000 pounds. I mean, how much better could life be right now if you're Phil Laak?
All the parameters, he would have possibly come up with a different answer.
Trickett's losing 19,000 euros, and at some point he's going to say to himself, I don't even know if I can get even in this game. The action allows it. Laak's open this up. Great spot for Jungleman to make the 3-bet. He just feels like Phil's at it, and this is decision time for Torelli.
He's got about $16.
Mainly just the LOs is on.
It's not a tournament, it's a cash game, and the 3-bet suggests strength. Torelli could, he's 36,000 deep here, and Phil Laak is 40,000 deep, so he could just call. Oh boy. So then he could have just 4-bet to fold, which is certainly going to be more along the Katchalov line, the first part anyway, the 4-bet. I don't think with 4-way action, Katchalov ever calls here with the 2 kings. And just a question about if he's a little bit worried that someone's got the aces out there. He's only got 13,000 here, Mike, so even with all this action, you'd probably have to stick it in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure he's going to raise it. And he does, as you can see.
3,800.
3,800 is now the bet. So he has bumped it up there pretty good. 2,700 more for these guys to call.
And a pretty easy fold for everyone, including, I think, Torelli.
I know what you're doing,
unless,
kid.
Mike, he wants
I
to...
don't do that. That's what you're doing.
Unless he thinks that maybe Katchalov is making a play specifically on him.
I saw how you think, A queen 5 jam. Oh, aces.
Can't put much by these cash game guys, but...
Well, I'll tell you, against a Trickett or somebody like that, I believe he'd have played the 10s. Against Katchalov, he's going to let him go. And wisely so.
Right to do it. Katchalov finding a good spot to pick up the kings, obviously.
Well, I'll tell you, Katchalov is great, but he's catching a lot here today, too.
Thanks so much. Now let him call 3. Now he makes it 1,500.
He is McCatchet.
Do you need a charger as well?
Eugene McCatchet.
Hasn't won big pots yet, but he's won a lot of them that he's played.
Right now, both Elky and Katchalov, they haven't been flashy. They've been solid. They've made good, solid laydowns when they had to, raises when they had to, and they're both winning this game. And to be fair, Mike, you'd have to be pretty confident about both their chances to continue winning.
300.
Well, 8 players at the table. We've got 4 winners and 4 losers.
Sam Trickett somehow weaned the massage girl away from Jungleman and has now got...
No, he's got his own.
Oh, he's got his own.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
2 players.
But actually a pretty smart move in his part because that's going to relax you. And, when you get a massage at the table, you're really not that interested in the game. You don't care if you're sitting out a hand or 2 because it just relaxes you, calms you down. You're not anxious. You don't care if you need to get in pots or not. Just enjoy the moment.
That 550.
Ignat with top pair here going to bet.
He's, for me, Mike, he's shown a lot of heart so far. He didn't let himself get spun out of control after losing the first 20,000. Rebought. He's focused.
Well, look at Torelli making the call with the 2 overcards, and now a 10 comes off, so I don't see Torelli going anywhere now. Let's see what Ignat's going to do, if he's going to shut down or not.
These guys are they're targeting Ignat a little bit, aren't they?
Well, it appears that way, but they saw him pay 2 big bets off on the river with not much of hands, and that's what they're targeting. They recognize if they can make a hand, they're liable to get paid off with it, and that might be what Torelli's thinking here, even though it's going to cost him another $1,400 to make this call.
Basically a pot-sized bet. So, I mean, you're not exactly getting the price here, Mike, unless you are going to get the big bet on the river if you hit it, aren't you? Well, he knows he's...
Well, Torelli has made the call here. So to win the pot, as the cards lie, he's an ace, king, queen, or a 9. And a 10 comes off, but it is the 10 of spade, which might freeze up Ignat a little bit.
Be interesting to see if, I mean, if Ignat checks, does Torelli want to try and represent the flush? It could have been in the back of his mind, right?
Certainly. He called on the flop, he called on the turn.
If you're Ignat, you think that beats you all the times, except for the times when you had the losing hand already, Mike.
Well, no purpose in betting right now if you're Ignat. It serves no purpose whatsoever, unless you just want to make what we call a blocking bet where the opponent doesn't steal the pot from you. But I think you just check here and you pay him off is what I think.
I think he's going to be in trouble. I mean, after you've paid off guys twice already and been shown the nuts, isn't it really hard? You just feel like you're beat, don't you?
Well, it does look like he might have had a spade draw here, no question about that.
Wow, he's called it.
Wow, he's made the call and he's going to win the pot. Well, Torelli didn't learn his lesson seeing this guy.
He thought he was beat. Torelli turned over the queen of spades first, and I mean, Ignat must have just thought, I'm looking at a flush here. But you know, sitting at that table, Mike, having watched Torelli, and all these guys haven't watched Torelli, you wouldn't have expected him to make the big bluff there, but Ignat,
well,
he held to his guns. You think there was a...
You got to be paying attention. You should have seen the guy pay off 2 big bets earlier with weak hands on the river. So why would you think he wasn't going to pay you off there? Andy Black in the house. Now you talk about a unique character in the poker world. Just put him in the top 10 list for sure.
He's just arrived, Andy Black. Oh, yeah. Him and Phil Laak could have some fun. But Andy Black's just arrived over from Dublin, Ireland. I know he was at the final table of the Irish Open, you know, which probably is, to him, one of the great tournaments that he'd want to win. He was chip leader there. He's been on a little bit of a roll lately.
Yeah. I think he went out in 8th place, though. So, again, another disappointing final table for Andy Black. But I'll tell you, he gets a hold of chips in tournaments. I got to give him credit for that.
I don't see Andy that much these days. Usually goes to Vegas for the World Series and doesn't travel much beyond that. He's a family man. But have a look here.
Laak has raised the pot. Katchalov 3-bet it to 900, and Trickett has picked up 2 kings here. And he's going to get a 4-bet in. Says, you guys can raise it. Let me raise.
I mean, this is a lot different, isn't it, than the Katchalov 4-bet on Torelli? And the reason I'm saying that, Mike, is because you know, people perceive Trickett differently, don't they? I mean, he is capable of making a light 4-bet here. Can Katchalov see through this?
Well, you're right about that. He knows this is the one player at the table that could be making a move here. Now, he may just want to opt to call and see a flop with the 2 9s.
They're never going to know.
See if little cards come up, or obviously if he could flop a 9.
32,000, whatever. It doesn't matter that.
If he was, they were both a lot deeper. Calling would feel a little more trivial because you could almost set mine, but I don't think they're deep enough here. Katchalov's only got about 15,000, so.
Well, he makes the call for 1,500 more, so over 5,200 in the pot right now, and we're going to have a flop here.
Great spot.
If it comes 3 little cards, it could be trouble for Katchalov. Well, the queen came up, so there is an overcard out there. It's come queen 6-5. Obviously a good flop for Trickett. I don't see him slowing down with all that money out there.
I wonder what their history is together, Trickett and Katchalov. I mean, I'm guessing they've squared off in some of the high roller events around the world.
Okay, we'll go the longest.
Well, when it comes to cash games, I know Katchalov would prefer to play
to one
big limit mix games as opposed to big bet poker, meaning PLO or no limit hold'em, even though he plays those games very good. But
figure out your
so they probably haven't played a lot of cash games together, but I'm sure they've crossed paths in tournaments on a number of occasions.
Now, this decision was never going to get any easier for Katchalov, Mike, unless the 9 hit the flop. Do you agree with that? I mean, this was always going to happen.
Well, I think Katchalov could have been in trouble had it come deuce, deuce, 6. But just because it's Sam Trickett and he's so aggressive, you see what's happening here. Because you give all that action earlier, when you finally get a hand you get paid off with, that's what happens to Phil Ivey, that's what happens to Gus Hansen, and right here, that's what's happening to Sam Trickett.
Now, Katchalov right now only has 11,000 back. There's 11,000 in the pot. So, exactly, Trickett can certainly bet all in here.
Well, I think that's what you do if you're Trickett. You're fearful that the guy has a diamond draw, perhaps.
No, that's the beauty of it. None of us know anything.
You just hate to let him draw, but on the other hand, you might want to just bet half the size of the pot and lure him in for another 5,000.
Got it.
One thing's for sure, it's impossible for Trickett. He's gone all in. He set Katchalov on, but impossible for him to consider giving up the kings.
Oh, no way. Impossible. He's just going. He's
loves
just going to call the rebuy person if this hand's no good. No doubt about it. Now Katchalov, who knows Trickett's very capable of bluffing here. He made a gut shot straight draw in the turn, meaning he can win the pot with an 8 now too, as well as a 9. And to him, he thinks he could very well have the best hand. Trickett could have ace-king be making this play. He could be making it with air. 2 9s could be good against this particular player a number of times.
I mean, it's just one of those things with the top players, isn't it, Mike, where you know, the decisions don't get any easier.
He's making the call, and now he's going to have to catch an 8 or a 9 to win the pot. Trickett's reputation and style of play has won him this pot, and it is going to be a good one.
It's going to be even again if the 8 or 9 doesn't come.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming that the 8 or 9 doesn't come off, of course, when I say it's going to be a good one for Trickett. But all that play he did earlier, splashing around, 3-betting, and all the 4-betting and fussing around, this is how you get rewarded. Because you give action, you get action. He's getting it here. Now let's see if the kings hold up. 3 comes off, so there you go. Just takes one time only to get your money back in No Limit Hold'em.
There you go. Sam Trickett's now going to have a big stack, and that's even bigger for him, Mike, where he's sitting now. He's going to have a stack that's going to be among the biggest at the table. Can play deep against Phil Laak. Can play deep against Alec, Torelli, and...
Well, Jesse, there's a case that Katchalov was playing the player. I have no doubts against any other player at the table, he would have got rid of the 9s. Against Sam Trickett, a guy who's tricky, you play those hands sometimes, and here he got punished.
Imagine he's going to have a rebuy here, Eugene. He's asking for more chips. It's funny how those things, though, Eugene knows if I start calling this guy, I may just have to finish it. You know, in his mind, the big decision, Mike, may have been pre-flopped. Welcome back to Vienna for the big game. 48 hours of action stretching ahead of us, and the 8 players who started still sitting around this table. Mike, no money has been brought off the table, so we're now, I think, over 200,000 euros on this table in cash, somewhere in that neighborhood anyway.
Correct.
Well, we got guys standing by, chomping at the bit to get in this game.
Okay, exposed.
Somebody's got to go before too long. Who's it going to be?
Judge each thing independently, you know.
300, wait. No.
Well, Torelli raising it to 300 with the king 9 suited. Katchalov got the suited connectors, and he's 3-betting with it. Now, most people would just call right there with that kind of hand. That's what they do. Katchalov, he is 3-betted with a 9-8, and again, Laak with a pair. He is going to call to try to take off a flop.
You know, now Torelli's looking over at Katchalov, trying to see how many chips he has, this sort of thing. Does he have to pay attention to Phil Laak as well?
Well,
and I'm not. I mean, King 9 is not the best hand in the world to start getting into flops
but
with.
it cost him 500 to call, and there's 2,100 out there. So he said, "Give me a flop too. Let's see what happens." And a good flop for him as he's taking the lead. I'm talking about Torelli. It's come King Jack Deuce.
Katchalov just shut this down, I believe. Check, check, and oh, pardon me. I thought Katchalov had checked already.
No, he's going to make the continuation bet, but I don't think he's going to like it.
Well, he might not like it, but Torelli can hardly raise, can he, Mike? I mean,
No,
check.
cannot raise.
He can check call once. He can check call twice.
And then he can check call 3 times.
Yeah, well, then he can check call, but not before praying. I mean, would there be any reason to raise? For example, just say to yourself, "I'm going to put a little money in for a raise. If I get any action, I'm just not putting another chip in the pot."
Well, the reason is in case Katchalov's got the 2 6s that Laak had, for example. You know, if a 6 came off there, you'd just be sick of yourself for not raising. Or if an ace came off, you'd be sick of yourself. If he had ace-queen suited, for example. So there is certainly reason to check raise here. The problem is, if he checks raises and gets re-raises, now he's probably got to muck his hand. So by raising, you could bet yourself out of the pot, as they say. But he is going to raise it. Just not going to give him a free card that could beat him.
Jam out a stack of yellows and see what happens.
Yeah, he made a move there. Katchalov only had 7,000 back, Mike, and you have to say to yourself that if Katchalov had 20,000 back or 25,000 back, Torelli never could have done that.
100%, Jesse. Completely changed the dynamics of how the hand is played. He knew all he could lose was 7,000 more. Had he been up against Sam Trickett or Phil Laak in that spot, he'd have played that differently.
And maybe Katchalov is going to have to think to himself, you know, I better put some more chips on the table. I don't want to give Torelli the chance to do that kind of stuff to me. I mean, you look a lot more powerful if you're a good player with a deep stack. I wonder, Mike, why Katchalov has chosen to buy in 10,000 euros a time instead of the maximum.
Well, it's a good question. I predict he buys in for 20 next go round. In case he has to make another buy.
Right, right. It might be, like you said, I mean, I don't know much about Eugene's cash habits, but that he is much more comfortable playing the big limit games than no limit. But I don't think he's not exactly out of his class here, is he?
I've played a lot of 400 and 800 limit games with him, 6 and 1,200. He's very comfortable playing high stakes limit poker. But believe me, he's not afraid to play no limit or pot limit Omaha or any other game.
I don't think so. It'll be pretty hard to find a lineup that he's an underdog in, isn't it? It's Katchalov who's opened this pot up.
Look at this. Jungleman did not raise with the ace-queen of spades here. He just flatted here. So again, we've got 4-way action. Ignat, of course, getting a good price to call with the 8-7, so he does so. He's got the livest cards at the table.
He was in
and he hits one of them.
He does.
Come 7s and 5s. He's taking the lead. No action back.
I like about a lot of these high stakes cash players, they don't fall in love with their hands on an individual basis, do they? You know, you get the ace queen and
well, it looked real good before the pot started and before the flop came out there, but now ace queen doesn't look that good.
It's Sam Trickett in last position, but I believe the action right now on Katchalov. Excuse me, it's Jungleman.
Wow, Jungleman
He's
best
leading
the
out here.
ace-queen. And look at that, Ignat throwing the best hand away. Wow, pretty amazing play there by the Jungleman. He didn't raise before the flop, and all of a sudden he's leading out and betting.
Now, Sam Trickett's thinking to himself, what hands would he lead out into 4 players with? And
well, Sam's not going to put him on a big pair because he would have raised before the flop. He might put him on a little pair, meaning he might think he can take the pot away from him.
And also, how often would Jungleman bet from this spot with a 5 in your mind, Mike?
Well, how often would he call a raise with a 5? And look at this.
Wow.
Sam Trickett just puts him on a small pair and thinks he can bet him out of this pot. And Jungleman knows that Sam could have any 2 cards before the flop, including a 5, but he's made the call.
Mike,
here.
these guys are on another level here. This is 1250 bet, and Trickett now, who's made it about 4,000, gets called on the flop. These guys are both bluffing. I mean, Cates has called him, thinking the ace-queen high can be good here. That's how strong that is.
And it is good. Well, 8 of spade comes off.
And Mike, I mean, what honestly is Jungleman's plan here? You can think a guy is bluffing. Are you prepared to call him for the 12,000 you have left in your stack right now?
Well, he's made the nut flush draw on the turn, so definitely a good card in that aspect, but it goes check, check.
How strong a call was that by Jungleman on the flop?
Well, can he stand another bet? That's the question. 9 comes off on the river. So virtually there's no hand Jungleman can beat but a complete stone bluff here.
And so for that reason,
on the other hand, he may think he has to bluff at the pot to win it. He might put Sam on a pair of 7s now, maybe a pair of 8s. Wonder if a bet would get him off his hand.
he's got just over a pot bet back. About 12,000 in his stack, Mike, and 10,000 in the pot.
He went to bet his hand and Sam Trickett mucked his hand. He might have thought he was stealing the pot. He actually had the best hand, but wow.
Daniel Cates, better known as the Jungleman, is one of the biggest winners when it comes to high-stakes online poker. He had a meteoric rise, starting out with $5 buy-ins to seriously high stakes. A well-documented clash with Isildur, where he lost £500,000, would have destroyed most players, but Cates built back his bankroll by going back to basics. His aggressive style of play, his key to success.
Being aggressive in some ways is better. Higher variance style in general works more in a cash game than it does in a tournament.
The Jungleman keeping his head above water with a slim profit so far. Very interesting. Sam, obviously, Mike, very aware of what kind of hands Jungleman's willing to bet in that spot. But on the other side of the coin, Jungleman obviously very aware of what Sam is thinking.
Well, some players you can push around like a mop. Pushing Jungleman around is like trying to push up against a wall. Not so easy.
I mean, that was easily one of the most interesting hands we've seen so far, Mike. These guys getting about 4,000 each on the flop in a 5-way pot, neither with nothing.
It would have just been so much more fun had Trickett fired one more shell to see what would have happened then. That would have really been fun to watch.
Oh, you're in the hand. I have it, and then I lost it, and then I had a new one, and now I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. I'm just going to say it to myself.
By the way, that pot just got
I'm not going to lose it.
Jungleman winner in this game.
Well, flop comes queen 8-7. Trickett out in front, as you can see, with the 2 queens. Phil Laak has bottom pair.
Can you do my head and then my arms again? Pardon? Can you do my head and then my arms again?
Now a king comes off, and just that quickly, Jungleman now has the best hand with 2 kings.
And Phil Laak's got the nut flush draw. That hand was built for action. Excuse me, that card on the turn was built for action.
Well, Jungleman believes he's got the best hand, so he's betting. And he does have the best hand.
Sorry.
You know, he's bet the pot here, Mike.
Bill raised the pot very quietly to 7,000 and took it down. He had the lone ace of diamonds on a bottom pair there. Nice play by Phil Laak right there to win that pot. That is earning your pots, folks.
Phil Laak making a big statement in the big game. More to come after the break. This is Vienna, home to the big game, and a home that Phil Laak has taken to.
25%.
I love the
He has
way
to lock it
Phil
in,
Laak,
so.
Mike, he makes his decisions quickly, and he is keeping these guys off balance. When they go back and have a look, they'll see that he does put some big money in on bluffs. He does put some big money in with hands. I think he's got a really nice cash game, and you have to say it's well justified that he's ahead 20,000 euros in this game so far. He's on the big stack. Jungleman has just got himself back to even. Look at the guys who are losing in this game. Trickett's losing a little, Ilias, Ignat, and Eugene.
You would never expect Eugene Katchalov to be the biggest loser in a poker game. But it is not over by any means. But the most fascinating thing about this chart to me is that Elky Grospellier is up over 10,000, and it doesn't seem like he's hardly played any pots. Of course, poker's not about the number of pots you play. You just got to win the ones you do play.
This game is, I think, overall being played up on a much higher level than any big game so far. And, you know, you just think to yourself, Ilias, Ignat, these guys are going to have a little bit of trouble. The truth is as impressive as Phil Laak's world record attempt was, and to me it was a real one, and it's nice to have someone put an official sort of Guinness number on it. Mike, you know from the old days that guys were rattling off big numbers and big sessions all the time. I mean, stories of games that would go for a week or 2 weeks were commonplace, weren't they?
Well, I would bet every kid in college that's ever played poker has played at least one 14-hour session.
And here we go. This particular pot, it's Phil Laak who's opened it up to 300, called by Jungleman and then Ignat on the button, Mike. And they don't have much.
Well, it's come Queen 7-3. Laak has the gut shot straight draw. He fires right out and bet 600. Jungleman has middle pair. He's made the call. And now Ignat Liviu has top pair.
This is not really a spot you want to do anything but call, is it, Mike? He's in position. Or would you raise sometimes here?
Well, you certainly think you got Jungleman beat. So you would raise in that spot on many occasions, but now when you get called, you're probably not liking it.
I think it's more than call. I think Laak has stuck a 3-bet in.
Oh, he has. He's up to 7,600.
I mean, that's pretty serious. What the hey?
Well, he's got a gut shot straight draw. Just doesn't think he can stand the pressure. What a bet by Phil Laak right there. And he did it against a guy who's been seen to pay off bet after bet after bet at this table. That's what makes that play even more impressive.
He's owning this guy. It's almost like he put him on exactly the hand he had, Mike. Top pair without much of a kicker. That's very strong.
Strong against a guy that's paid off virtually everybody that's bet at him.
20.
It's crazy then. It's insane.
Just a great play by Phil Laak. Had a perfect read. Just thought the guy had a weak queen and couldn't stand heat. Read it perfectly. Put the 7,600 out there, and those little trombones went in his stack.
71.
That's the reason that you have to know what kind of fire you're playing with when you make those informational raises on the flop. And at the highest level, I mean, wow.
76.
Laak was on him like detergent. I mean, he was on top of it.
Well, Laak always likes to camouflage himself as a weak player. Oh, these young guys are super geniuses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when anybody watches the tape of this game, their respect and the credibility of Phil Laak is going to skyrocket. And
yeah,
that dummy routine's not going to work much longer.
This is a terrible, terrible thing for Laak. He has completely shopped himself here. This is.
He was so happy he made a big mistake in the Premier League that the world would see. We pointed it out. We jumped out of our chair.
You're so right.
He didn't pay off a $6,000 bet on the river when he had a flush, and we couldn't believe it. And he said, "Oh, that's only going to help my image. I don't even care about it. I'm happy I did it." You know.
Well, Jungleman's opened this for 300. Everyone around to Trickett in the original straddle position has called, making this a 5-way pot. And
folks, let me tell you something. Here's a parameter of a good poker game. When you're playing no limit hold'em, if you get 3, 4, 5 guys call them pre-flop, you're in a good game. And this is a good poker game.
And this is a big flop. We've got a bottom set here for Jungleman. 2 straight draws in the guise of Katchalov and Ignat.
But because there's 2 clubs out there, Jesse, you know, the straight guys can be scared off and out of this pot if they get bet out of the pot. I'll be very surprised if Jungleman doesn't take down this pot before it's over with, but
He's bet 1,100. This was, he was the original raiser, the opening raiser. So how does Katchalov want to do this?
you might call to take off 1 card here.
And one of the reasons that calling take off 1 card is a nice idea. Being in position for Katchalov, he's going to have a good chance to maximize.
Well, the problem is it's not quite 20% of a stack, but you know, if he had a deep stack, you'd certainly want to take 1 off against a deep stack, you know, like the Jungleman's got. But
I mean, against a certain range of hands, you might just want to go all in here. You know, feeling like that he's got some overcards, which will be good. And he has raised this, Mike.
wow.
Big hands match up.
Well, I am surprised at that.
Yeah, Katchalov was hoping he had somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 or 14 outs. As it turns out, he's got a lot less than that. He's got 8, but if the board pairs, that number will shrink considerably.
Well, they ask if you want to run it twice. Now, running it twice means you put up a turn card in the river for half the pot and another turn card in the river for the other half of the pot. In high stakes poker, this happens a lot. We haven't seen it yet here.
That's in the rule sheet.
Okay, twice.
That's what running it twice means. And you're going to get to learn something here if you don't know about it, because they both agreed to run it twice. So essentially what they're doing is playing for the half a pot twice.
How many times can they get you?
Here's the first half. The board pairs 10s.
Just close that one off.
So that's the first. Katchalov is closed out. He can't win it even if he makes it straight. He makes queens up, which is no good.
I need on the river.
I mean, Katchalov has to catch a king or an 8 to win the pot
It would have been unfortunate.
without the board pairing. That's all he can do.
Yeah.
And at least you didn't hit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And now they're
Now
going to run.
Jungleman knows he's getting at least half the pot.
You're gonna lose it.
Now it's just a matter if he gets the whole pot. He's got to dodge a king or an 8.
Well, if I double pair, it's even better.
Well, there's an 8. So running it twice might pay off for Katchalov here. If he can dodge the board pairing, he's going to get half the pot back and actually make money in this hand.
I want to win the money.
It's funny, there are certain dynamics when people always run it twice. Barry Greenstein, as you know, Mike, sort of well known for his refusal to do that. He doesn't want to get people pushing in on him, knowing that if they get caught and they're on a draw, they're going to get a chance to reduce their variance.
That's why he doesn't do it, because he thinks it affects guys playing. Knowing they get to run it twice, they get more chances to win the pot, so they'll make lighter calls, so to speak. But the truth is, mathematically, doesn't matter if you have the best hand or the worst hand, it's equal to you to run the thing twice. Now, I know many players that feel like if they have the worst hand, they don't want to run it twice. They know they've got to outdraw the guy sometime, and if they do outdraw him, they want to try to win the pot. So they might run it once as well. But there's a case. Katchalov had the worst hand, didn't mind running it twice. Mathematically, doesn't matter if you have the best hand or the worst hand. It's exactly equal whether you run it once, twice, 3 times, or whatever.
The only thing it definitely does is reduce variance, as they say.
I think that's right too.
And, you know, a lot of players are interested in that.
Well, over the course of a night, if every pot was run twice, what you would do is just balance the money out more. You know, you wouldn't have such big winners and losers in a game. It's actually good for a game if you want to keep everybody in money, because it does tone down the losses.
That's true. That's true.
Raise 300.
Well, right now, Jungleman, though,
Tell him to not worry about it, because I'm going to be playing every pot, so it's just going to I'll never have a
feeling
chance.
like he lost a few dollars there. And he's playing very well, I think, Mike.
Is this a raised ISO situation? You like doing that, I know.
It'd be really hard. It'd be really hard to imagine anybody would want Jungleman to go. He's
I saw some of those videos.
not only one of the most fascinating characters in
I saw
poker,
you do
but
this play online.
probably least seen, least viewed as far as televised poker goes. This is his coming out party.
Oh, what a flop for Phil Laak. It's come Jack 6-3. He was gambling pre-flop with the 6-3. Jungleman has hit second pair, so I don't see him slowing down betting.
So
But this is going to cost Jungleman some money. My prediction.
He 3-bet from the button, didn't he, Mike? And
Well, I know your videos, you c-bet 100%, and then you talk about the tight range and this and that, and then you always fold when this happens. So, I watched the whole video. I didn't just stop.
wow.
I go to the whole 42 minutes when I watch the video. I do.
Well, Phil Laak instant raised here. Little over 5,000 more for the Jungleman to call. He's only got second pair. I don't see him calling anymore. Phil Laak was hoping he had 2 kings or 2 queens there, where he had a real hand he didn't have.
It's like 87% there.
Phil was teasing Jungleman. Jungleman has done a few strategy videos about online play, and Phil said, I read them. And I've watched your videos, Daniel. I know that anytime you make a c-bet on the flop, you never call the check raise. After about 4 hours, it's that man Phil Laak who is setting the pace with over 26K in profit. Torelli and Elky chasing hard. It's just those three showing a profit at this stage. The rest are suffering. None more so than Ignat Liviu, down nearly 17K.
Coming up, the next chapter of the big game unfolds and a twist is added with the first eviction. Who will stay and who will go? And perhaps more importantly, who from the waiting group of players will step up to take their place in the Party Poker Big Game 6.